Hey everybody, welcome to one more round with Josh Norris. I'm very excited. We've got Peter Meyerhoff with us today. He has his podcast called Roll Call With Chappy. Check it out. Their guests are phenomenal. He's got a new app coming out, and then his SOBR brand is awesome because we're going to get into some of that. So make sure to leave a comment here, like it, subscribe. This is what we're bringing. So awesome, man. Well, thanks for making the trek
Absolutely.
down.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. I think I was telling you, so I heard about your story a little bit on Brad Lee's podcast, which I've listened to forever.
Yes.
Man, you got quite the story.
It didn't used to be any good parts. It was just used to be all trouble, but now there's some good parts, so it's okay. But yeah, it's quite the story for sure.
Yeah. So you were in prison for a little while, right?
A long while.
Long while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I served almost 12 years straight in prison. Went away when I was a senior in high school. Should have been a senior in high school. Mm-hmm. Spring break, my senior high school, we all burglarized a house, 10 of us kids. And I ended up getting 12 years in prison. I served, like I said, 11 years and 10 months. I got out a month after I turned 30 years old.
Holy smokes.
0 of my 20s free.
So what was...
And I didn't look like this. I was 6 foot, 144 pounds, and I went away with long blonde hair from Ahwatukee. That's not the prison type. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Well, it's funny because I just met you in person, and the camera doesn't do you justice. You're a big fella.
I always say that.
Yeah, so I can imagine in prison, like putting on a little size is probably an important thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
What was that like? What goes through your head when you get sentenced and you go to prison?
So, what's crazy? I thought I was going to get 4.5 years. They tripled my sentence on my sentencing date, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. I ended up getting I think it's the worst burglary charge in Arizona's history. My judge got banned for being too harsh on sentencing afterwards, but they didn't re-sentence me. And I didn't find this out until afterwards. He had his Judge Ishikawa. He had this thing in his head where he didn't think that kids' minds were fully matured until they were 30 years old. So that was what he did. He locked me away for 12 years plus 18 plus 12 is 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. And then I remember I was always the popular kid in school, had it all as a kid, and I threw it away for drugs. And I remember walking the first prison yard, and you walk out after chow, and I remember just looking out in this yard thinking, holy shit, I'm a nobody here. You know what I mean? No one even recognizes, even notices I'm here. And I remember thinking, how the hell am I going to do this? The crazy part about my first little prison story. So they all take you on a big bus. You go from Alhambra, and then once they find a yard for you to go to, they put you all on this huge bus. And it's like an all-day driving. If you have to go to Douglas, then you're going to Tucson. It's it's not like the streets. You're going on every ride there too. Yep. And if you're the last stop. So I finally get to Tucson complex, and there's 7 yards there. It's a huge complex, and we pull in the thing, and I'm like, because there's one big main gate around all the yards, and there's all the individual yards in them, right? So I get there, and keep in mind, I've never even seen a prison yard. So I'm 19 years old because I did almost 2 years in the county jail fighting my case.
Yeah.
And at this time, I put on a little weight. I'm 165, 170 pounds. So I was 144 when I got locked up. And I see dudes playing basketball and softball, and I was honestly thinking, thank God, I could do that, And then we drop some more people off, and you see the same stuff. And then I was the last group of people to get off. And you pull up on my yard, and there's literally 0 people walking the yard. And it's a yard half the size. There's no softball field there. And I'm like, of course I'd be going to this kind of yard. And, it's funny. They thought I was some little pretty, to be honest, they thought I was gay. Yeah. And I had no idea. I was used to being tough.
I hadn't seen Ahwatukee there.
Yeah, I didn't even know how none of that stuff worked. Yeah. You know what I mean? And, so I made it a point. I'd always heard about heart checks in there, and I made it a point I was like, all right, I'm gonna beat someone up just so I can show these dudes I'm not some little gay whatever. Yeah. You ain't gonna pick on me or bully me or whatever. And I ended up beating up the dude that ran my building, who was legit twice my size, and he didn't even land a punch on me. And
were you a fighter before? Is this kind of part of the personality? Oh, got it.
So that was the thing. I used to box. So it's and then it's crazy when you get to prison. They'll give you a little funny rundown, and they say, "Do you know why they call it a sucker punch?"
No.
Because you're the sucker if you get punched. Oh. So he's like, if you even think you're going to get into it with somebody, you take off on him first. And I'm like, okay. I literally used his own rule against him because he started talking shit to me, and then he turned around to take the chew out of his mouth, and I was just on top of him.
Yeah.
And then the next, you get locked down for a day, and then the next day you come out to chow hall, and then it's these OGs now are like, what up, youngster? I heard what you did. And I was just something clicked in my head. I was like, that's all I have to do, And I had nothing to behave for. I had no relationship with God anymore, because I was thinking, how would God give me 12 years? I was an angry dude, and it's just it was a perfect mixture of just trouble, you know what I mean? Because that's what got attention. I liked attention. I wasn't gonna be a nobody, and I had literally 0 things in the world to behave for. So that's where I started my sentence. And by the time I was 23, I was running yards and just went.
What's that look like? Running yards, It
is not fun. You're like a full-time babysitter, but so there's always a shot caller for every race on every yard, and you make all the rules, handle down whatever punishments happen if there's people on the yard, but there's always one dude that runs the yard for every race. So like I said, by the time I was 23, I became the shot call and I started running every yard I was on.
Wow. Is that you basically making sure things are run the right way and taking care of business when they need to?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have to make sure and make money, because all the brothers for, the Aryan brother and stuff are in Supermax and SMU2, so you have to send them money for making money on the yard. You gotta, it's a full business in there. It really is. I have dudes that would like run stores in every buildings, and then they do NASCAR pools, and everything funnels to me. And then, so like I said, you have to, it's not only just being tough, you have to be able to, so it's like you run little businesses in there. And that's probably where I learned some of the entrepreneur stuff. You have to like do that stuff and make money in there. If not, it's not just about being tough. They'll take the yard from you, because you have to be able to provide for them.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Was there a time in there where like you started to read and did you have the entrepreneurial spirit?
To be honest, I did nothing positive my entire prison sentence. I didn't read a book in 12 years. And that's the craziest part about my story, which is why I'll get into later, but I developed like prison curriculum that I have that I'm gonna go back and teach in the prisons, which is my own crash course on how to be successful. Because I did zero things mentally to get my mind ready for the streets. I didn't read any books. I did nothing positive. Luckily, I got sent back to solitary confinement for my last like 10 or 11 months. And that was the only time I had like finally 10 months to be like, all right, I got to get all this politics shit out of my head. But I didn't even know what like the life was like out here. I was a kid when I went away. I had zero idea how like even the world worked. You know what I mean? Like I went away with the Nokia phones. We had the Nokia phones with Snake on them.
Yeah.
We got on those iPhones with flat screen TVs and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a huge adjustment there.
So I'm kind of thinking through that 12 years. Yeah. From 18. And so what year did you go in?
I went in 03 and I got out in February of 2015.
Oh yeah. All the things changed. Tesla didn't exist.
Bluetooth wasn't even out.
Yeah.
None of that stuff.
Yeah. So you come out. What was there like? Just a shock at everything, almost like Back to the Future. Going to the
first day
future?
Getting out. Yeah, we went directly to the gas station right there, and I spent $37 on energy drinks and just candy and stuff.
Yeah.
I couldn't even eat the first few days. Like I wanted to eat, but my stomach was just in such knots. So we just spent all that on energy drinks, and it was like a shock. I remember I get to my brother's house. What's really weird is you don't realize like besides just getting out of prison, I had this address that I've been writing letters to for all these years, and I'm gonna go live to, and I have no idea where the house even is. So like, it was kind of cool too. You see, like when we're driving there, I'm with my dad and all them, and he's like, "Your house is right coming up here," and they're like showing me where I'm gonna live, and I remember walking into my brother's house. It's funny thing or not, I like sports and TV and stuff, and I walk in and I see this huge flat screen TV he has on one. I'm not even joking. I fainted almost. Wow. I've started bawling, and I was like, the TVs are this big out here now.
Yeah.
And
when you went in, because there was like flat screen, there was Bang & Olufsen, right?
Yeah.
Remember them in Chandler Mall back in the day? But it was like $40,000 or something stupid for a flat screen that was still that
the big screens that had the big, the speakers in the bottom.
Yeah.
That's what kind of TVs we had. You know what I mean? Our TV was freaking this long and still had the wood around it. You know what I mean?
Man, you're like, this is beautiful.
I thought so. Yeah. When I had my first cell phone in prison, it was hilarious. I had this, so it's like the little cheap flip phones from the gas station. And just like I said, in drugs, that's why cell phones are illegal in there, because that's how you set up, drugs to come in, all the bad stuff. You know? And you can, put hits on people from other yards through that way. So that's why like cell phones are they don't want you to have them in there.
Yeah.
And I got my first phone, and then I was telling my brother I visited, I was like, dude, I got the sickest phone. You won't even believe this thing. And he's like, asked me about it. And I'm like, come to find out, I describe it. It's like the free ones they give you at the gas station. I think it's like the most state-of-the-art thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I can watch little 3-second videos with horrible clarity, but it was color screen. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah. That's amazing. It does. It reminds me of Back to the Future too, when he goes to the future and like oh, this is all, wow, this is kind of cool stuff.
It's just like that.
Yeah. So you were in there, and you get out during that solitary confinement time. That's when you started reading, and
I didn't even read. I just at least I was, I got, and they tell you this in there, like there's more drugs in there than there's on the streets. I had never seen heroin or a needle before in my entire life, and got involved with all that in there because, like, dude, on those high yards, 95% of the people slam heroin. Like, not even joking. Really? It is so rare that you'll find a dude that doesn't do that. And so I got involved in drugs really, really bad in there too. And like I said, I didn't care about the world. I didn't care if I overdosed and died. I felt like I had nothing to live for. And luckily, like my last 10 months, I was strung out again, weighing 175 pounds. And I went to the hole, and I was like, I remember inside I was like kind of happy. I was like, God, maybe I can just get my mind right now before I get out on the streets. I was like thinking it was kind of a blessing.
Yeah.
After a few months in there, I'm like banging on my door, like, all right, now I'm sober. I put on 20 pounds. I'm like healthy, like, let me back out on the yard. And what's crazy and not the coolest thing, but like, I think one of the coolest things about my story is like I messed up so bad in prison. Like the SSU, which are like the big detectives in there, they literally told me at my cell door that day verbatim. They're like, "We're done with you." It was either that or I was going to go back to maximum security anyways. And they're like, "We're done with you." And his words to me is, "We're going to let the streets have their luck with you because we're done."
Yeah.
So I not only like did 12 years in prison, but I literally got kicked out of prison. Like that's how much bad shit I did in there. You know what I mean? Like I sat in solitary confinement until I got out. And I remember telling him, I was like, how do you expect a dude that did 12 years in prison and then do my last 10 months in solitary confinement to make it out on the streets? And like, I'm like, I have to be around human beings and stuff like that. And they're like, that's not our problem. You know what I mean? They're like, we have a cell for you waiting if you come back. That's what they told me.
Wow.
So I get out of prison with no game plan even or anything. The whole time I told myself, I just got to get out and I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? And luckily, I always tell people when they get out, you got to find somebody that has something you want. You know what I mean? And luckily, my little brother was able to show me the ropes on just life, like little stuff. You don't even believe how much like stuff there's to learn when you've done nothing yourself for years and years,
Is it the institutionalized?
For sure, absolutely, yeah. And not only that, but even just your mind thinking, you know what I mean? Like you think if someone like talks bad to you or something like that, then you can punish them and you're allowed to, and it's not how the world works, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You get disrespect on a daily basis almost out here. I literally learned to laugh it off now. I don't care. I'm like, I'm 6'4", 250 pounds. If someone literally is just gonna disrespect me, have at it. I just laugh at it now, you know what I mean? Like clearly they have something
wrong
going on in their head that I don't even know
and
about.
they're stupid. So.
Absolutely. Or what do? You fight them and then they press charges on you when they start it. That's how the world works. You know what I mean? That stuff's not cool, So like, but that's what the course I teach now is about rewiring your entire brain. Because I've had to rewire my brain 3 different times. I'm from Ahwatukee, like the little suburbs, no gangs, none of that bad stuff. And then I have to like turn my mind into like this prison mentality and like all those rules, and then like I'm institutionalized with that, and like that's how I'm thinking the world works. And now I'm an adult and this is how I've been living my life the whole time. And then like, oh yo, you're out. Yeah. Shut all that off and go figure life out. Yeah. That's literally what they say. And they wonder why they're sitting where it's like 80-some%.
Right, because your head's probably still on the swivel.
Absolutely. And like I said, there's nothing, not only did I not do anything positive, but like when you're on those 4 yards, like they don't have programs for you. Like there's nothing positive you can read books by yourself, but that's it. Which is what got me into doing the prison curriculum too. So I developed my own crash course on prison curriculum. It's somewhat tied to that SOBR app, but I have 2 apps coming out.
Okay.
So one is my own course on how to like overcome, because I'm claustrophobic. I have ADD, ADHD, horrible. I love talking to people. That's how I network so well. I don't sit still. I'm not a TV person. And I spent years in a 5x7 prison cell where I couldn't even, you don't get out, and it's not 24 hours, 23-hour day lockdown. It's 24-hour day lockdown. You get 3 showers a week. It's either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And when they take you to the shower, you're shackled up the entire time. They put you in the shower, then they undo your shackles on you, so you'll never ever step foot out of your cell without being shackled up. I spent years and years like that. But I learned to talk to myself. And as crazy as that sounds, I mean, your mind is the strongest muscle you have. I'm a firm believer of that, So as long as like, and I always say this, you're allowed to talk to yourself without being crazy, you just can't answer your own questions.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, I answer sometimes, so maybe I'm crazy, yeah.
So I used to talk to myself, and I used to tell myself, and I put little notes up, and I still have them around my house now. They're different notes than I have now because I was a different person, but they're like, don't be a bitch, It's like you think you're this tough, you wanted this stuff, like notes like that to myself. So anytime I like wanted to be like, what am I doing, or how am I gonna do this? I'd like look up there and see that, and I'm like, you wanna be this big, tough bad guy, that's what you gotta do. And now it's the opposite, you know what I'm saying? It's like, don't give up, have gratitude, I have a huge gratitude thing right above. Shout out to Bradley, that came from Bradley. Like, I'm big on gratitude.
Me too.
It's even bigger than him, and when you hear him like explain his little analogies with it or something like that, and he's the reason I put that big gratitude thing up, because he told me, he's like, the second you wake up, before you even open your eyes, you say, thank God I have today. You know what I'm saying? And he goes, if you can have gratitude in your mornings, he's like, your days will change.
Absolutely. Well, I love his how he puts it too. It's like, hey, you want $1 million? Well, what if I gave that $1 million, but you can't wake up tomorrow?
Yeah. What's funny is I heard him say that before, so I literally set him up on my podcast just to say the exact thing, so I can cut up a good reel for him to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's brilliant, because he said it many, many times, and I always think about it too, because Ed's a big Ed Milet, it's a big gratitude. I mean, if you're not grateful for the things that you have at any point in life.
And you can find gratitude in any situation, no matter how it is, you know what I'm saying?
You can be poor, you can be rich, but if you have gratitude, you've got far more than your average person.
I have gratitude now, for no joke, for doing 12 years in prison. And I was mad at the world, mad at God, and I didn't think, and I was honestly, I was worried because I was so bitter and angry when I got out, and now, like where I am now that I found God back in my life, like I'm honestly grateful that I did all that, and like, because I'm a tough dude, but I turn myself tough mentally, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm someone that's strong enough where I was able to go through all that bad stuff, so now I can use that message and help people that think they're struggling and think they got it bad. When they hear how bad I had it, they don't think they got it that bad anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. So how did you find God again? How did that turn around?
Sheriff Land, you know him?
I've seen signs.
Okay, he's a good friend of mine. I met him when I started. I would do he has these shop with the sheriffs every Christmas. So I'd sponsor, when I started making money, I would sponsor single mothers for Christmas.
Okay.
Now I was raised by a single mother by choice. I chose not to go to my dad's because he wouldn't let me do drugs and stuff. And my mom was a flight attendant. I had the house to myself. So I chose to be raised by a single mother, but we did not have anything growing up, you know, and Christmases were always tough. You know, my dad would have to like give her some extra money just to get us gifts. And so I started doing the thing, you know, that was what, so my story also is I started making like, I never worked a day in my life, you know, until I was 31 years old. I had never been on a date before. I got in the car business, and I mean, I made 10 grand my second month ever working, made 100 grand my first year ever working, made 200 grand the second year. I was gonna make 350 last year and walked away from everything because I literally just want to help people. You know, like money doesn't make money. I mean, clearly everybody says this, money doesn't make you happy. It makes life easier though, and it makes it easier to be able to help people.
Yeah.
But you know, there's only so many cars you can buy and the house and all that stuff. And when we don't have any other life, it's just like, I got bored with that. And I was like, I just wanted to help people, you know what I mean? So I put away a stack of cash, and I decided last June just to walk away from everything and try and launch all my projects I'm doing now with the podcast. And I just want to inspire the world to change, man. I feel like if people see me in the car I'm driving and the house I live in, and they think they can have it too. And it just, I mean, it really, you can see the switch go off in people when I'm talking to them and I tell them about my story, you know? And it's like, dude, I had a chick at the Ray and Priest Ray in the freeway where all those homeless people sit, you know?
Yep.
No offense, I'm not a fan of homeless people, just because I've known drug addicts and that's their little hustle. They still have to make $150, $200 a day, tax free, and they get their hotel room and they get high for it every day. So I don't ever support homeless people. I feel bad for the veterans and the certain people that are homeless, but it is what it is. I don't contribute to that. Clearly a God thing now. I used to think these things were all coincidences and stuff, but so I'm sitting there in front of the light, and I see this girl. She's hiding behind her sign. It looks like she's holding tears back. And I'm like, damn, she is going through it right now, you know? And I was like thinking, and I remember thinking, she looks like she's on the verge of like it's like she's had enough, you know what I mean? And
like she might jump in front of a car type thing.
So I roll my window down, and I was like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna give you any money, but I was like, I've been where you are. I've been homeless. I did 12 years in prison. I've overdosed 5 times. I've died. I've been through it all, you know what I mean? I'm a multi-millionaire now. I have 6 years sober. And I literally give her like a little 20-second crash course thing on just my life and where I am, you know? Yeah. And then I have these little flyers I keep my podcast out there. So I hand her my thing, and I was like, listen to my podcast, listen to episode 1. Maybe it'll inspire you to do something. Either way, I just felt like I had to say something to you, you know? And I get just to show how not homeless they are, but I get a Facebook message later that evening. And she's like, I've listened to your first 5 podcast episodes nonstop. It's the most amazing story ever. She's like, I'm gonna go to this other corner tonight so I can listen to the other 20 episodes, because she gets Wi-Fi where one of these corners are. And I talked to her the next day, and she literally checked herself into treatment.
Wow.
Swear to, so she's literally in treatment today just from something I said to her on the corner. It's crazy. And it's like, if I would have given her $5, what would that have done? Gave her a little bit more money to go get high.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Some
people just need a nudge to get somewhere, and that's what she said. She goes, I just needed something. She goes, I was there, I like had enough. She goes, this was like literally the spark I need. So I just want to like spark people to make the change. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
So is this how God got back into your life? Or
oh, excuse me about that. Yeah, no, sorry. I told you I have ADD.
The hell of a story. I love it.
Right? So when I walked away from my job, I didn't even think I was going to do a podcast. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had made some money in real estate and had a ton of equity in my house. I bought my house 2.5 years ago, so clearly you know how the real estate is. I was like, if nothing else happens, I can refinance my house, take some money out. But I'm like, I saw enough people on Instagram doing this shit. I'm like, I will 100% figure it out. There's not a chance that these dudes are going to do this and I won't figure it out. So I happened to leave, and I just started meeting with a bunch of people now, because I teach on networking now. You know, like everywhere I go, I talk to people. You know, so I had this huge phone book now, but I was in the car biz. I couldn't do anything with it because I worked 60 hours a week, 6 days a week. So I start meeting up with people, and I end up going out to lunch with Sheriff Lamb and Mason Lee. I don't know if you know him. His name's Gun Fu Fighter on Instagram. Shout out to Mason, but we go to lunch, and Lamb asked me, he's like, dude, get some stuff done up so you can come help my inmates and teach them like what you do and how to be successful. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, make some curriculum, man. Just come in and teach them. He goes, the biggest thing is just you just got to come in there and teach them. But he's like, we have a huge budget for this. We don't do anything with it. All they were doing like last year was like getting these women prostitutes that would come in. They would get their tattoo removals from their pimp, but he said they would do 1 or 2 sessions while they're in jail, and then they leave, and he goes, they're just wasting the money. So he's like, do some curriculum. He's like, I would love to have you come to my jails and teach my guys. I think we can actually make a difference with this. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And he tells me like the budget they have. I'm like,
even better.
Wow, okay. So I'm thinking, there's no way I'm gonna like be able to make, that and more than I was making, but doing something I love. And I get home and I'm on Instagram, and this dude DMs me on Instagram. And he's like, hey, so-and-so, I saw what you're doing. He goes, I know you seem pretty connected, but if there's any way I can help you out, I'd love to help you out. He goes, I'm just a fan of yours. And he goes, I'm one of the biggest prison curriculum developers in the country. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what are the chances of that on the same day, right?
Yeah, right.
And I'm just like thinking about this, and I'm like thinking, how is stuff like this happening that's like good to me for once, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And something just tells me to get down on my knees and pray. And I hadn't prayed in 10 years since my cousin died when I was in maximum security. That's a crazy story if you want to hear it, but
yeah.
My girlfriend was still there sleeping. I didn't wake her up, and I just decided to jump down on my knees and pray that night. And I was just like, it was like clearly a God thing. I think that was just him finally showing me, like, that was like all the shit I'd been through, as long as I keep doing this, I'm going to keep getting blessed. So that's my mission, like I say, when I help 1 million people, I have $1 million. Yeah. And that's it. That's all I want to do is try to pay back people for all the bad stuff I've done, and, write all the stuff that I did for God, and try to just give forgiveness and grace from him, man, because I was so bad for so many years,
Yeah, no, it's amazing, because I was 19 when I had found God.
Okay.
And I was not on a good path. Let's just say I could have been in prison with you a few times.
Most people say that, and they'll say what they did. I was like, that's not even what I went to prison for. That's worse than what I went to prison for.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I remember Brad talking about that, and he's like, yeah, most people just haven't got caught. Yeah, well, I mean, I was from about 17 to 19, I did some stupid shit.
Yeah.
But it's funny, I joined Amway, of all things, right? Network marketing, and that's a story for another time. But there was a Sunday morning service, and everybody there happened to be Christian, or they actually had breakout rooms for Hindus, for everybody, right? Okay. But I said, if you want to know what makes me tick the way I do, and it was big multimillionaire, but a fat dude that just was funniest dude I've ever heard, is Larry Winters. Says, come tomorrow morning, I'll tell you. And I mean, he told a story on how he found God and some of these things. I'm like, I relate, to all this stuff. And I was sitting in the front row, I remember, because this is an auditorium that had about 6,000 people.
Okay.
And I ended up, he does an altar call and all this stuff. I stand up, I'm the first one of 6,000 people to get up there. And by the time I was done, there was probably 1,000 people behind me. And I'm crowded, and it's like, I'm freaking, I got tears going on, it was like, I needed it, my soul needed it, you know? So like that for me was a big change, because, once that's in your life, you see things through a different lens.
Everything makes sense.
Exactly.
Like seriously, and like my 12 years in prison made sense, because that was the hardest thing I had, why I could never believe in God again. It never made sense to me why I would get 12 years in prison for a burglary charge. Like, why would God want me in prison for that long? It didn't make sense until now, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because now, my story is so bad from before, and there's so much bad stuff, and you can see where I am now. Like, it makes people think the impossible is possible, and it is.
Well, your story is polarizing, so people can't help but want to hear more. Like, oh my gosh, multimillionaire, life's great, but you're in prison for the formative years of your career.
And I have an 8th grade education. I didn't pass freshman year of high school.
No, wow.
Like, I dropped out of freshman year of high school.
It's insane.
Yeah, and that's what I talk about. No education, no anything. And I'm like, I did finance, and math is my worst subject. Mm-hmm. Just to show people you can literally do anything as long as you put your mind to it. Like, I would have to use my calculator on like the most simple math things, but it is what it is, and I got the job done. I ran the best numbers there. You know what I mean? That's all that matters.
Right.
Is you got the will to do it, and just the drive to put it in. It's like Jocko Willink was just saying that the other day. It's not like what does he say? It's just discipline. Mm-hmm. It's like, do I feel motivated to do everything? No, but I have discipline, so I just do my shit and I handle my business.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you rely on motivation to do everything in life that you're supposed to.
2 out of 7 days I'd work out a week, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like going to the gym, sometimes I don't. You got to go. Otherwise,
absolutely.
You don't get the goals.
It's your routine and discipline. You just do it. You just do what you got to do and what's in front of you.
Yeah, it's me. So you were talking about your cousin in prison. He passed away.
My cousin Sally Meyerhoff, who was, everybody says, people are great when people pass away, obviously, but she was like the most amazing woman. Like, didn't kiss a boy through high school, top, she had all the state records for distance running, All-American at Duke, #1 qualifier for the Olympics, going into the Olympics in 2012. And she was the first American athlete to win the P.F. Chang's marathon. And she won the P.F. Chang's marathon in January, and then that April got ran over by a drunk driver and killed in Maricopa. And she was training on her Olympic bike, it was our top female going into the Olympics the next year. And she was so loyal to me. I was like a huge Duke fan when she was there. JJ Redick?
Oh, yeah.
I was like obsessed with him, and she had him autograph me and send me a picture when I was in prison. So I had JJ Redick's thing when I was even in prison. And it's like,
wow.
She's just the nicest, coolest, just all she cared about was like her dogs and her family. And She got ran over, and I found out the craziest part. I was in maximum security at this time, so you only get 1 10-minute phone call a week there. You never ever leave your cell. And that's where it is. The 5x7s, literally like Shawshank Redemption. I find out watching the news at 6 a.m. They have this cover story, Sally Meyerhoff. And I'm like, hell yes, I'm watching. I figured they're just going to talk about her just winning the PF Changs again. And they said that she got ran over and killed this morning. And man, I always say thank God I was in a cell that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was horrible because I had to do all that shit by myself. You know, like you couldn't even call your family member or anything. I think I was 22 or 24 at the time, so I was still young. And that exact same day, I remember, and I don't mean to like bring up harsh stuff, but this is like literally the life I lived, you know, and just it shows like it's what's possible for people. But like that same exact day, they had a dude that was a rapist came in there, and like over there, like you have to, like I said, you're shackled behind your back. So if you want to like a new guy, you want to come get like a little mirror or something to use your thing, that's what they'll do. They'll call you over, and the cop's with you the whole time. So the cop will come over there, and you have to go down to the bars behind your back and grab something from somebody, and they'll do that. So he put in, they had paperwork on him that he was a rapist, so this dude told me I had a mirror for him. This is the exact same, this is later on in the evening when that happened with my cousin. And so what you do right there literally is you'll grab a hold of their cuffs through the bars and pull them through your bars so they can't go anywhere. And then you put your other arm through the bars and just start stabbing them.
Yeah.
And I remember watching this dude get stabbed up, and it's so crazy. I still hear, that's what's like my PTSD is still so bad because I can still hear like the sounds and stuff, you know, like certain people screaming, I can hear you don't realize the pop, it sounds like you're punching somebody because when you bury a piece in their chest, all you hear is like this, you know?
Yeah.
So I heard him just like smack him in the chest a bunch of times, and dude ended up walking out of there. I'm like thinking, this dude lives and my cousin's dead. You know what I mean? Like there's no way God's real, you know? And even before then, I told you, I didn't think that God was real because I was like, why would he give me 12 years? I still prayed every night. And my thought process then was, if God's real, I need all the help I can get. So I'm gonna pray, you know what I'm saying? I have the time, so what's an extra 20 seconds? Worst case scenario is I'm already here, you know?
Yeah.
And that was the day I chose to just give up and never pray again. I was like, there's no chance God's real if that would happen. And it was April 11th of 2011.
Wow. What was your prayer when you were praying?
I would always just do like the Our Father and like the Grant Me Serenity prayer, and then just ask for what I needed help on or something like that. You know what I mean? Just normal, typical stuff.
Okay.
I pray now.
Yeah. No, it's
same thing, praying, meditating. I finally just started meditating this week and everything too. So
yeah, meditation I did for a while, and it was great. But man, there were sometimes it was just really, really hard for me, and I got away.
I'm so like going all over the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. It settles you down. It allows you to kind of, especially if you do it at the start of your day.
Yes.
But I remember.
So I just started that from Brad when I had him on my show. I'm doing 30 minutes in the morning, no phone. You know, Ed that I think does an hour or two like that. I'm doing at least 30 minutes.
Yeah, I tried it with my phone, like to barely touch it. Like, and I don't open my emails until I get to the office. But I found that my little routine works pretty good, but meditation is
it's
awesome.
all about finding a routine, you know. Every routine works for somebody different, but you can have your own stuff, and as long as you stay to it and stick to discipline, or whatever, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? As long as your routine's not sleeping until 11 o'clock, then you know what I mean.
So you get out, you're in the car business now, and you're making money, but obviously you were doing some stuff in real estate. You had your home and whatnot.
Just bought a couple houses. I was making money, you know what I mean. So I bought another home, made some money, and I just bought the house I live in now was big ass house,
Yeah. So you just were making money that way, and
that and bought. I mean, I started playing with crypto a little bit, but bought. You know, I bought and sold some cars. And I bought 12 cars, and I was there at the dealership, and just that's all I did was work and made money, but I did nothing for other people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why. But I'd get calls from people that were like getting out of prison that would reach out to me on Facebook or something like that. And so I would try to help them out. You know, just give them some advice and whatever I could. And I honestly blew a couple people off recently. And then like a Saturday, I blew off some youngster, and then I was just like, I've lost so many friends to fentanyl and drugs and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, if I don't answer someone's phone call because I'm like here and they're gone, like I'll never get over that. So I started just like plotting the way to get out of there. It was clearly God was telling me to get out of there because he had bigger plans for me, you know. And I even told him, it was so crazy how it happened. It was just like literally out of the movie. I told my GM and I called him in my office, and no one has ever been a bigger fan. I give him a shout out on everything else. But Josh Spencer, dude, no one has ever been a bigger fan of mine, you know. And he's the only dude that ever took a chance on me because nobody wanted to hire me when I got out of prison. You know what I mean? And I called him in, and I just told him, I was like, I got some bad news, man. He's like, what's up? I was like, I'm just done working here, bro. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm quitting. He's like, what do you mean you're quitting? I was like, I can't do it anymore, man. He's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, honestly, Josh, I don't even know, man. I just want to help people. I'm like, I know this is not where I'm supposed to be anymore. And he starts crying. He's like, man, that makes me really sad. And I was just like, you know, that's my life. I lived there it still gets me emotional, you know?
Yeah.
And I just knew there was something bigger for me out there, you know. And but I'm still on the float trying to figure this stuff out right now as we speak.
Yeah.
And I have to figure everything out by myself because there's no one that did what I did before, so there's no one to really ask for. You know, I can call on Brad and those dudes if I had like a big thing or just give some advice on. But other than that, like, I'm just rolling on the fly and just figuring life out and just trusting on myself and betting on myself enough. But yeah, that's what I told him. I was like, I don't know, man. I'm just gonna take some time and quit and try and figure something out. But I'm gonna do something with helping people, you know. And I told him I had a ton of equity in my house, so I was like, if I have to, I'm gonna just sell my house and play with that money for a little bit and see what I can figure out. But I was like, I just know I can't do this anymore, man. And I just want to help people. And we literally ended up talking for an hour and a half. And I told him I'll finish the month out so I didn't have to change the schedule and stuff. And then the next day I went into work, and I'm not even joking, I sat there for like 45 minutes. I was like, I'm out, bro. I can't even do this anymore. I went back to him. I was like, Josh, I'm sorry, I can't even sit here another day. And I literally walked out of work after 45 minutes the next day.
Wow. That's, you know.
But we're still friends. Like, I golfed with him 2 weeks ago. Like, it's, and that's what you do. Like, I left such a good impression. And that's why, like, with me, that's what he told me. He goes, if it doesn't work out, you have your office back. Like, he literally told me that, you know? So, like, what the hell do I have to lose?
Right.
It's all just about taking chance on people. People are so stagnant, so comfortable with their situations, and they think it might not work out better. It might not work out better. Why don't you live with regret or
right.
do the same thing over and over again when you're not happy? Like, that's insane to me. You know, I just wasn't happy anymore and I couldn't do it. Like, I don't know how people stay in these jobs where they're not happy, but they think they don't have a choice just because they think that. It's like me putting myself in a box when I got out of prison. If I told myself I wasn't gonna get a job because I was a convicted felon, a 4-time convicted felon, I wouldn't have been able to get a job just like I didn't first, until I finally told myself, man up, go figure it out and get a damn job. And then I did, you know what I mean? I made 6 figures.
Yeah.
It's literally that. It's all mindset. Everything is mental.
Well, I love the fact that you took another leap to do something, because it's not like you weren't making money and you were successful.
It's like a 30 grand a month, bro, to have my own office.
Right. But at the same time,
who would walk away
like
from
you
that
said,
from prison? Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about you.
Yeah.
But you had this burning desire to help people and to say, I'm done with that. I'm going to do it. I'm not even sure what I'm going to do, but to start stepping like that takes some faith. Like,
I knew I had enough money put away for a year, so I told myself, like, I got a year to figure it out. And that's what I told Josh, is I got enough money put away for a year. If it doesn't work out, then I'll be back.
Yeah. So why'd you land on starting a podcast?
So I had got interviewed by a bunch of people, and what's crazy, when I was even in the car biz, I didn't even believe in social media. I thought it was the stupidest thing in the world. Like, I still think Instagram's retarded, but I have to do it now. Excuse me, I don't mean to say that word, but Vice TV had actually reached out to me, and I had 500 followers. And they're like, you want to do the next season of our show as a teenage felon? I was just like, yeah, are you kidding me? And then, so they did that whole TV show on me, and then I got interviewed on a couple other podcasts, like Emily Hayden from First One. I don't know if you follow her.
I know.
You should, she's awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to Emily. But so she invited me on her podcast, and then I did like a Big Herc from the Fresh Out series. I did a bunch of stuff, and those shows all got like over 500,000 views. They were like, did really well. And I was just reading the comments, and everybody there would say, like, favorite guest, this dude needs his own show. Like,
yeah,
this dude needs his own show. So I was just like, And clearly it's a God thing, because to this day, so my first podcast company is Justin Bowie and his wife, who I follow them both. To this day, I've never ever seen her post about his podcast except the one day that I saw this. So it was a month after I quit working, and she's in this podcast studio. And she's like, Justin's studio. And I was like, so I DM'd her, and I was like, what do you mean Justin's studio? He's a plumber, and he's really successful. He's a huge plumbing company. And I was like, she goes, oh, he's a partner in a podcast studio too. You should come by and check it out sometime. And I was like, no way. I was like, how does he have time to do that too? So I literally ended up messaging him. I was like, yo, you have a podcast studio? He goes, yeah, come by and check it out. And I'm like, all right, cool. I still know nothing about this at this time. But like I told you, I'm just like, I had this phone book, and I'm just going around just meeting with everybody I could, trying to just turn something into something that I could. And I go there with actually my buddy Big Herc, who runs Fresh Out series. Have you heard about it?
No, huh?
It has like 600,000 followers. He was like the biggest dude but he would only interview dudes from prison. Okay. And he was just like all prison stories. He changed his life, but like it wasn't my mission, because mine are all positive stories. It doesn't have to be prison. He would only interview dudes that did prison time. So he interviewed me on there, and it just like, it went really, really well. And then I brought him with me to go meet up with these podcast guys, just because, if anything, I didn't even know what I was doing. Like I told you, I just didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to ask me a bunch of questions. I knew Herc knew the podcast, not YouTube stuff, and he was my friend. So if anything, I just brought him in to be like backup, so I didn't just look stupid. And we go there and start talking, and these dudes are just all over me. Like, don't even pay any attention to Herc.
Yeah.
Like, just fascinated by my story. And we end up leaving, no agreement. We end up talking just for an hour to see everything. I was like, cool, thanks for letting me come by. And then the next day he messaged me, goes, hey, can you meet us for dinner tonight? I'm like, sure. So I go meet them, and they're like, we would love to do a podcast with you, but we want it to be only with you. And I'm like, cool, because that's kind of what I wanted. I wasn't tied to doing a podcast with Herc. I just brought him back for more than anything. Like, just some advice. And I was like, I'd kind of love to. And so we ended up working a podcast deal, and they get my whole show going off the ground. And like I said, to this day, that's the only time his wife has ever posted that podcast thing. It was clearly a God thing. He wanted me to see that. You know what I'm saying? And because so my podcast now, I got it on every tablet in every prison across the whole United States of America.
No kidding.
So all the inmates can listen to my stuff. So it's perfect for the curriculum, because they have the curriculum here, and that's what I have assignments for every single week. They have to listen to one of my podcast episodes and write down things that they're grateful for, and stuff like that. So I honestly think I'm gonna, not single-handedly, but I really believe I'm gonna change the recidivism rate for the entire country, because my podcast is gonna make such an impact. And I know this because I've sat in those cells. You know what I'm saying? If you can get the leaders to do that stuff, everybody else follows them. You know what I'm saying?
You're creating a movement, which
an entire movement,
amazing.
An entire movement.
And I think, and there's time goes on, but ever anything I can do to help with that.
Cool. Likewise.
It's, I'm stirred up hearing you talk about it, because I can tell you're passionate about it. And I know, I have some family members that had been to prison.
Everybody does. It's crazy.
And one, I won't mention who it is on the podcast, but he's very close to me. He's one of the closest people on the planet to me. And when he was gone, he got screwed. Same kind of thing. I think he had 7 years for something that literally should have been a year, or he should have gotten out of completely, right? And he's talked to me about his time and all that stuff, and he never went back. He came out.
How long has he been out now?
Oh God, 15 years.
Nice.
No,
awesome.
Longer than that, 17.
Okay,
17
cool.
years. But it was just one of those things where I remember, I'm like, gosh dang. And he told me about all the people that would have to, basically the retreads, the coming in. And he, fortunately, never got into drugs or anything like that,
Good.
But I don't know. For me, I'm like, there's so many people that need that help, and they don't know any different.
Yeah.
If you don't know anything but, boom, I'm going to get a meal, I'm going to have a cot, and it's been like that for years and years.
Yeah.
Fuck, man, how are you supposed to know how to get a job and all these skills, especially in a situation like yourself when you're so young in your formative years in a career are
Literally.
In prison? So
gone, yeah.
No, dude, that's amazing.
Cool.
So you have it on your podcast in the prisons. It's blowing up, man. I've seen your numbers. It's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah. It's crazy to me even, dude. It's like every day lately. It's like I get DMs from. I'm not even over the country. Like I get them from other countries now, from Brad shows still to this day. You know? It's like. Yeah, it's been nuts, man. It's been really nuts. But it's cool because, like I said, I had no idea what was going on. The first half of my podcast, I thought it was cool, but I was like, I didn't know it was going to keep going. I still get nervous before every podcast. And so seeing, and one way I know it's like really getting around is I was around a few big groups of people like the past couple of weeks. And like anytime I'm there's a bigger name there or something like that, the first thing I do is like promote my podcast. Like I carry flyers everywhere I go still to this day. Yeah. And like the last 5 people I've all told my podcast about, every single one was like, I've already heard Roll Call With Chappy, so I feel like we're already subscribed. I'm like, no freaking way. I'm like, that is freaking awesome. Awesome. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
So, and you have brand SOBR LIFE, so let's talk about that.
Yeah. So
how did that come about?
I had the SOBR LIFE because I wanted to. I started that honestly because I just wanted people to. Even when people got sober, I feel like there was always a stigma about it, and they were embarrassed to say they were sober, and if they were out with their friends, they were embarrassed to say they didn't drink. Yeah. I'm the opposite. I tell them the same thing. You don't want to see me drink. Like literally, that's what I tell the bartenders. I'm like, I'll burn this whole place down if I start drinking tonight. You know what I'm saying? I make a joke about it. Yeah. So I wanted to just make something cool to where people like would represent and be cool and be proud to be sober. You know what I mean? And there was another brand I saw, it was like Baller, where they missed the R, and I was like playing with the sober, and I was like, God, I feel like SOBR looks dope just without the E right there, you know? And Brad Lee gave me some little advice back on it too, and told me, he's like, you remove the E because there's no excuses if you want to get sober. Yeah. And just to show, another shout out to Bradley, just to show how genuine he is, I did that. I don't know if you remember his podcast, but we talked about that on air. He's like, we got to figure some catch out for the E, and blah, blah. And that's when you could tell he cares, because he's like literally trying to coach me during the podcast. I was like, what a cool dude, you know? 2 months later, I'm at the NHRA Drags on a Saturday afternoon, and Brad Lee calls me. And I'm just like, I felt like it's a principal calling me or something like that. You know, I'm like, oh shit, I go run to his no ear. I was like, yo, what up, man? He's like, I got the answer for you. I was like, what is it? He goes, remove the E because there's no excuses. I was like, shut up. I was like, how are you still thinking about that? And he's like, dude, one of my followers just gave this to me. He goes, here's the name, just give him a shout out and tell him thank you, man. But he goes, it's just awesome. I was just like, dude, that like made my day that he like still thought about it and called me on a Saturday afternoon. You know, that's the kind of guy he is, bro. That's
awesome. I haven't got a chance to meet him, but I know like you, Jack, a lot of people know John Story, who knows him super well. And I mean, I can't wait to meet him at some point.
Yeah, he's as good as it gets, man.
Yeah, oh, that's amazing. Well, man, you got so much going on in the Sober Life. Where can they buy some merch?
So yeah, they can buy my merchandise on my website. It's just petermeyerhoff.com. Everything's funneled to my Instagram, so my Instagram is just Peter_Meyerhoff. I have an app coming out, with that same thing. It's the Sober Life app. It will be in app stores next month. It'll be free to everybody, but if you want to pay, it's gonna have like life coaching from me, fitness stuff. But everybody can download. It'll be free in the app store.
Dope.
And like I said, I'm starting a whole big movement, man. And I just don't see anything stopping it, man. And I just know if I keep putting the work in, it's gonna keep coming.
Absolutely. Man, I appreciate you coming on
Absolutely.
today.
Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, this is one of the best episodes we've had. I mean, you obviously hear the passion. Make sure that you stay in touch. Follow Roll Call with Chappy. But in addition, think about the movement. I mean, reducing the recidivism rate. Is that how you say that?
Yeah, recidivism. It makes your mom safer at home. Like literally, like it sounds cliche, but it literally does that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So I mean, it's a huge movement. So keep following him, and let's make a difference together on that.
And if you have anybody struggling, a family member, something like that, like I'm not joking, have them reach out to me. This is literally what I do. It's my life is to help people get sober and just change their lives.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys. We will see you next time. Appreciate it.